Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second episode of Real Conversation. We had a great episode last week, covered a number of different topics, and now we're back again to do the exact same thing. We're going over top headlines of the week. We're also going to be covering episode 3 of Loki, which just dropped this morning, going over our top 5 summer movies of all time, and then also kind of talking quickly on a recent movie that we did a watch together on, which you can feel free to check out. Luca, the new Disney Pixar movie, which is now featured on Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus, you can literally watch it right now for free. Well, you get the point. You have to pay to watch it, but you don't have to pay the premium in order to check it out. So with all of those things said, I'm Landon. This is Disney Park Savvy as well. Savannah, how are you doing for our second episode of this?
I'm great. It's been quite a week. This morning's episode was pretty insane, and
Yeah.
I am excited to get into everything.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're talking about episode 3 of Loki, I know it kind of seems to be what we focus a majority of the attention around, and we'll talk more about this as time goes on. But I've kind of thrown a few ideas around, talking about maybe we should upload that portion of Loki almost as a separate entity, or maybe as another entity along with this. But feel free to let us know. Again, feel free to get involved in the conversation down in the comments of this video, whether or not you're listening to this, if you're checking us out. Feel free to also find us on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, at both at Real Convo. So yeah, make sure to, stay up to date with us. We're posting more on Instagram, posting things on Twitter as well. So again, you just want to find us more information. That is the opportunity to do it. So without further ado, let's go ahead, Savannah, and get into our top headlines of the week.
Hi, everybody. It's the first Monday of the new year, and it's time for headlines.
Okay, so this morning, actually, before we started recording, a lot of stuff happened. One of those stories has to do with Indiana Jones 5.
Oh no.
Now,
I'm
yeah,
already worried.
this-
I'm already terrified.
Okay, so here's a little background on the movie for those who may not be following kind of what's going on with that. This movie has been in the works for years. Spielberg was attached to it, and then Spielberg walked away, which
Oh, no.
scared me. It still scares me. But anyway, they're moving on with the movie. Harrison Ford, they're shooting as we speak, and the movie is due out next year, July 29th of 2022, which is actually 15 years after the last Indiana Jones movie, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I still choose to believe doesn't exist.
Yes.
Anyway,
Agreed.
so they've been shooting. Earlier this week, some photos leaked online of the shoot and showed a stuntman wearing a mask that looked like a young Harrison Ford, along with Harrison Ford actually having motion capture dots on his face. That has led to speculation that in Indy 5, Indy could be de-aged either for like a flashback sequence, or who knows, maybe the whole
Right.
movie.
Oh,
We don't know.
gosh. That
So that's been that's been a thing this week. But then this morning, it was reported that Harrison Ford was injured. He actually hurt his shoulder during the shoot today. So they're going to try to do what they can without him for the time being, and may have to move the shooting schedule around. So
How-
yeah.
Okay, hold on. We have to keep in mind that Harrison Ford is what, 70? He's in his late 70s.
He will be 80 when this movie comes out, if it does come out next year.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
I gotta stop
I
doing
know.
this to Harrison Ford.
Apparently he's good with it though. Like he signs up to do it.
Well, I'm sure he is, because, not to talk about his interests, but I'm sure he's being very well compensated for
I'm
this.
sure.
But that's just it just bothers me, because I was so excited. I think everybody was super excited for I honestly don't even know the name of it anymore. The Crystal Skull, is that what it was called, right?
Kingdom
one?
of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, let's gonna call it the Crystal Skull.
Okay.
I was very excited for that, not knowing, of
Yeah.
course, coming into it what to expect. So just like, oh yeah, Indiana Jones is back. It's like, okay, this is gonna be awesome. And then there's talks, that Shia LaBeouf is gonna be in it, and that was like, okay, all right, cool. Like, at the time Shia LaBeouf was like, more of a known actor. People were excited, and then we get the monkey scene where they're climbing through vines and swinging from vines, and all of those things. And now they're gonna bring it back again, and It's like again, I feel like any information about Indiana Jones 5 is just horrific. Like it's just terrifying. Anytime that you hear anything about this movie, anything about what's coming next, I just feel like it continues to lower the expectations that were already very low, because I'm already thinking
Right.
this is going to be right around the same as Crystal Skull, because I'm sure that they have learned a few things from then, but I don't think that they have learned enough to the point where like, oh yeah, this movie's going to be way better than it was. Like, or rather way better than the predecessor, than the one that came right before it.
Yeah, I don't have very high expectations. I mean, I hope it's great. I want it to be great,
Yeah.
but I don't think it will be. Have you seen, by the way, the trailer for the Jungle Cruise movie?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have.
Okay. Now people apparently love that trailer, and that's cool, great. But the CGI cheese-iness that was in that trailer confirms to me that Disney hasn't learned their lesson from Crystal Skull. So
Essentially,
yeah.
from my interpretation, I think that they realize they can get away with just making everything with VFX. Like they can just get away with everything by just adding VFX
That's true.
to it. Because, we saw
That's
that with the new movies, like the live action, like Lion King and all those things, like, and some of those are considered good. Same thing with Jungle Book, all those things. Like, I'm assuming that most of these movies are now just like, bring in high level actors because we can afford it. We'll pay for the VFX because we can afford it. And that's the way that we're going to right all the wrongs. And I think that's the exact same thing that's going to be in Indiana Jones 5. It's going to be about, are we going to be able to tell it's, not Indiana Jones in certain scenes? Absolutely. Are they going to like probably make it look okay? Most likely. But it's going to be just VFX everywhere. And it's going to be like this fun movie that doesn't make any sense. And I hate that. But
Yeah.
that's the way that they do things now. At least for some movies.
Well,
But
we keep showing up to see these things, so I guess maybe it's our own
I will
fault.
say for Indiana Jones 5, it's like, I hate to say it, but it's basically us just witnessing like, really they decided to do this again. Like it, you're showing up for, I don't want to say disaster by any means, because it's not going to be a disaster, but well, it very well could be. I really don't know, but
I don't know.
I think we're all just interested to see what happens. I'm looking at your notes here. 15 years. It's been 15 years since the last one.
I know.
What? Why am I
Crazy.
so shocked by that?
I was shocked as well when I looked it up.
So that movie
Time
came out
flies.
in 2008, 2007, 2008.
That sounds
Wow.
about right. Yeah.
Okay, well, don't mind me.
So yeah, I kind of start off with a downer there in a way, but maybe it'll be good. I mean, who knows? I will say this one thing that came to mind. If Harrison Ford's totally cool with being de-aged in multiple ways, bring him into Mandalorian season 3. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do a whole lot there. you
Right?
know?
Exactly.
He really doesn't.
Exactly.
Like
So-
Indiana Jones is such a more tasking role than than Han Solo. I don't know.
We got Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker last season. Why not get a Return of the Jedi era Han Solo in
Agreed.
season 3?
Yeah.
If that is something that we get out of this movie, then it could be worth it. But
Actually,
anyway,
really quick,
go ahead.
last thing. I don't want to force bets. I hate talking negatively about movies and stuff because I love Harrison
know.
Ford, as we
I do
know.
too.
Right, you do too. But much like we saw, because they've done the same thing with like Pirates of the Caribbean. Like they've just shot that to the ground as time has gone on.
Yes.
How much money do you want to bet that their goal with this movie is to try and make future ones with like a child of some sort? Like someone's coming up next, because they tried to do that with Shia LaBeouf. Obviously did not work. At least it seemed like that may have been the
How are they going to
case.
address that?
I don't know, but do you think that that's what their goal is, or do you think it's like, okay, we're just making one last movie, we're going to call it, we're going to call it a close. We need to right the wrongs from the Crystal Skull. Do you think that there's another one that comes after this still? Or because it seemed like to me with the Pirates of the Caribbean angle, they were trying to add in like younger characters to kind of take the reins a little bit, or at
Yes.
least, and it may have just been for that movie. But I think that they were trying to like make something new around them, whether that's a TV show, whether it's another movie, whatever it may be. How much do you bet they want to do that with Indiana Jones as well?
I think it's just my gut feeling. I think they're going to try to like close the book on Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones. I don't think we're going to see them try to set up anything else. However, do we get a younger, different actor as Indiana Jones in the future? I say yes. But I think it'll be treated as a separate thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just putting this out here right now. I put this on Twitter months ago, and I stand by it. I want Chris Pratt in
Yes.
Indiana Jones role.
Absolutely.
Do it.
100% agree.
You know,
100%.
thank you.
Really,
Because I think we'd be cool with that.
so
You
we
know?
do bet that there will be some characters in this that are trying to take the legacy moving forward. We hope that it's Chris Pratt, but I don't think that Chris Pratt's at all confirmed to
no,
be in
I
this
don't
movie.
think so. No, this movie,
Okay, you
I'm
don't
just
think
going
so?
to
Okay.
close it.
Oh,
They're
I
just
see. I
closing it
gotcha.
up.
That's right. Okay.
But give it 2 years to breathe, and then I think
But
Disney will try to reboot it.
I will say right now, if they try and kill Indiana Jones off, I will never let that die. I will never let them live that down. That is not happening. You cannot kill Indiana Jones. Just saying.
I don't think they'll kill him.
I don't think they will either, but you know, it's a possibility. We've seen it happen before, so I just want to make sure this is not like I'm going to be on the edge of my seat, not because I'm of the storyline, but to make sure that Harrison Ford's character does not pass away, because that should not happen, at least in my opinion.
I agree.
Or if it does, maybe it does, and it's like in a good way, but I don't want it to be like, you know, for the sake of the next characters coming up. Like, it needs to be something that pays homage to the Indiana Jones series, if it does happen. But
right,
again, I will move forward. As you can tell, that was a very sensitive subject for me.
I should have probably left that for the end of the rundown. I know that was a passionate topic, but it's all good. It's all good. Let's go from it's kind of Spielberg, you know, Indiana Jones Spielberg, you know, he left the project, but still, this is about Spielberg. He and his company Amblin partnered with Netflix this week.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes, and they're going to produce at least 2 films a year for Netflix. And there's a possibility, of course, that Spielberg could direct these films himself. And this is interesting because, one, it really gives some clout to Netflix. I mean, that's pretty great. Also, Spielberg has a record of kind of being critical of Netflix. I believe 2 years ago, Roma won Best Picture at the Oscars, and it was a strictly Netflix movie. And Spielberg wasn't thrilled. Like he liked, it wasn't like he was upset with the movie, but he is concerned about the theatrical experience.
Right.
And which I understand that. But his comments were kind of controversial. People had different opinions on that. But apparently now he's good with it, and he's partnering with them. So we're going to have Spielberg movies coming to Netflix. Now, of course, Amblin does a lot of stuff. Spielberg will be producer. It doesn't mean he really has a whole lot of like influence or his touch in those movies, but there are some that could. So yeah.
Like, imagine if, which I don't know how everything's going to go. And I know that I don't know if Stranger Things is already wrapped up, but imagine if he got his hands on a project similar to Stranger Things almost.
Oh my
for a movie.
gosh.
That would be incredible, because again, I know that Netflix makes tons of movies. I mean, there are tons of movies that I have, you know, no awareness of whatsoever. Yes. There are some that I've seen that I've liked. But I think for Netflix's sake, as you said, that definitely gives them like some props. It's like, okay, cool. You got Spielberg, you got one of the greatest of all times, at least his company to work with you. And, you know, we don't know obviously in terms of if that means that he will direct a movie or work with them, you know, that closely, but that at least opens the door. It at least makes the conversation easier for something like that to take place. So I think there's a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of talent at of course, for Netflix, and even, I mean, there's so many different movies that are coming out, like Amazon Prime and Netflix and all these different companies who are making their own specific movies strictly for their platforms, nowhere else. I think it could be cool, but I would love to see, you know, his own take. I think like a Spielberg TV show would be amazing, but a movie, anything like that, I will take.
He got started in television, so
yeah.
He's done it before, but that would be amazing. But like a Spielberg project that had Stranger Things vibes, I mean, people would just go crazy for that. So I think this news is, again, very interesting and definitely kind of ups the ante in the streaming wars that we're in. So that was a big deal, I thought. Another story is Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Yes.
Have you seen the recent trailer for this?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I want to hear your thoughts, because we are OG Space Jam fans, part of our childhood.
Right. So
what are your thoughts on the new legacy?
I don't know, honestly. Like, and I know people are gonna probably hear like audio popping up in the background every once in a while, so apologies for that. But just because I like to watch the trailers while I talk about them, I don't really know. Like, it kind of seems a little bit like techie whenever I was watching the trailer, and as I'm watching it back, like it kind of seems like they're trying to better explain how like the process between cartoon and real life works. I don't know. I feel like it'll have some really good aspects to it. I think there'll be some really good scenes. I think the storytelling will be good, but I think in general, it just seems like they're kind of almost removing the excitement behind Space Jam a little bit. Like, if you look at the trailer, like almost every single character is involved. Like, I'm seeing like the Mystery Machine. I see Fred and the Flintstones like walking around. Like, I don't understand like why we're getting everybody involved in this. And again, like, I don't know. I think that Space Jam was so different, but it worked, and everyone was like, okay, like I can get on board with this. Like, it's so different yet interesting. Cartoons at the time were super fascinating. Everybody was in love with basketball at the time during the 90s, like, or the early 2000s. Like, it just made perfect sense. And I just feel like this movie, I don't know.
It's forced.
I'm worried that it's forced, and I don't know what the right word to say is, but it's slightly oversaturated. Like, everyone knows how much they love Space Jam, and so they're going to work so hard to make it like Space Jam, but different. And sometimes whenever you do that, you end up ruining the product itself. Like, you're almost, and I guess I don't want to say this gets back to like the Indiana Jones conversation, but it's like, you know, when the people were making the original Space Jam, it was because of like a creative idea. Like, they had this idea to like make this certain story, and it just happened to work. And I feel like whenever you try and replicate that over again, now all these years later, it just, like, I guarantee if they made a Space Jam 2, like, you know, maybe like 5 or 6 years with Michael Jordan after the original one, people probably wouldn't love the series as much, or remember it nearly as well. But I think now that we're doing it all these years later, now in this kind of new situation, which I'm obviously a fan of LeBron as well, I'll watch it. I'll be excited for it. I'm really going to be excited for it, but I'm also very optimistic that my expectations are for it to be at Space Jam level, the original, and I don't think it's going to be there. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it looks like Ready Player One.
That's a very good way to put it. Yes.
That's how I'm calling it, Ready Player One with basketball and LeBron.
And they're already.
But it could be cool. I don't know.
And like at the very end, like I'm watching it, and it's like you can tell like they're trying to take little elements from it, almost like they're taking like, you know, the famous scene where, you know, Michael has to jump across the entire court where his arm gets extended and stuff. Like, they're trying to like, you know, do little things like that. Like, I'm afraid it's going to be too similar, but like also at the same time, like they're trying to make it scarier with like these supervillains. As you said, it really does. It's very similar to what looks like Ready Player One, but I don't know.
Right.
Which I love Ready Player One, but I don't know if I love Ready Player One mixed with Space Jam.
We will find out on July 16th. And it's also streaming on HBO Max that day, as well as being released in theaters.
Yeah.
So there we go. Okay, next one, Jurassic World Dominion. The teaser was released, and it was just a short, just a few seconds long, couple shots of dinosaurs. But Universal promised that an extended look of the trailer would be in IMAX screenings of Fast and the Furious 9 only.
Oh, okay.
So and I think some of that has leaked online. You can look for it yourself, try to find it, just saying. I've looked, but the quality wasn't great. Maybe I have better luck than me. But yeah, Jurassic World Dominion. In addition to that, there has been a lot of buzz this week at Fast 9 press conferences that Jurassic World and the Fast and the Furious franchise are going to cross over with each other.
Please no.
Have you heard this?
Have
you heard this?
No, I have not.
So yeah.
How does Jurassic World, the obviously the only movie I know is Jurassic Park, but Jurassic World, how did the last one end again? Do you remember?
It ended with, the dinosaurs were brought to the mainland after the island blew up.
Yes.
And then they got free. So there are dinosaurs just roaming free.
Okay. That's what I thought.
In our towns and our cities.
Right.
So
that's what I was thinking as well.
With that.
I want to make sure that I was on the same page with that, because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's how it ended, and so that's how they could do it. But I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. I don't want Jurassic World to become the Fast and Furious, which is just, like, I don't want to be looking, at the year 2028 and we're like, okay, Jurassic World number 7's coming right up and we'll see what happens. Like, I don't want that. I really don't.
It'd be interesting though to see like Vin Diesel and The Rock driving a Jurassic Park Jeep outrunning a T-Rex. I mean, it could be interesting. But yeah, I hope it doesn't happen either, just because those two franchises need to stay separate. But I do think it's created some interesting conversation in the film community this week. So I had to share that with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you for doing that. And we will
last headline of the week.
We'll see if it happens.
We'll see if it happens. Yes. I have a bit of a surprise. I didn't even put this in the notes because I wanted to surprise you with it. Because this actually broke before we recorded. And I am really curious at your reaction. So are you ready for this?
Yes, I'm very nervous, but I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Okay. Scarlett Johansson, who of course has Black Widow coming out next month, she is supposedly going to produce and star in a Tower of Terror movie for Disney.
Really?
Yes. That was an exclusive story provided by Collider, and it broke this morning. And you didn't see that coming, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
So say it again really quick. So she is...
Okay.
So she's going to
produce...
Okay, produce.
And star in a Tower of Terror movie.
Okay. How
do you feel about that?
It's honestly a really random combination. Like, whenever you said that, I was like, okay, we're going Marvel here. And then you said produce. And I'm like, okay, is she producing? Oh, okay. Just something I haven't really thought about in a very long time. But, okay. See, now I'm already starting to think about Tower of Terror's existence at Hollywood Studios. Do they try and change it if they're trying to make movies around it?
Now, a movie had come out in the 90s, I think in 97.
Yeah.
And it was a TV movie about Tower of Terror. I remember vaguely watching it back in the day. I don't remember being that great. However, I do think that ride could make a great movie.
Really? Okay.
I do.
I'll take your opinion on that. But that is definitely not what I expected.
Anytime a Disney ride comes into like what else I love, which is movies, I'm kind of cool with it as long as they don't ruin it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that was honestly the last thing that I expected to hear.
I know. That's why I kept it a surprise.
I don't hate it.
I read it in the notes.
I don't hate the idea of it, but at the same time, it's not something that I ever thought that I would think about. So,
should we explain what Tower of Terror is for anyone who hasn't been to Disney World?
Yeah, I'll let you do that.
Okay. So, Tower of Terror. There are actually multiple ones at Disney parks around the world and different versions of them now. But the main one is at Walt Disney World, Disney's Hollywood Studios. And it's basically your classic drop ride where you're lifted up and dropped over and over again. But you're inside a 1930s hotel that's kind of haunted. And lightning had struck it in the 30s and people disappeared. And it's themed after the original Twilight Zone television series. So you're kind of entering your own episode of the Twilight Zone, and this elevator drops in the Twilight Zone. But the theming and like the tone of that ride, and it's super like scary. It makes a drop ride like much more interesting than a standard drop ride, and it's one of the most popular attractions at Disney World. But I just think that the whole story they've already made for the ride, you could really take that and make it something cool if they really do it right.
Yeah, because we were both, I think, which I'll be honest, I've never been to Disneyland, but I was kind of a little bit worried about whenever they changed Tower of Terror in Disneyland to be
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Focused on Guardians of the Galaxy, but it appeared that it didn't really have the same, at least, and I may be speaking for people, but from what a majority of people discussed, it seemed as if it didn't have like the same love that maybe Orlando had, or I should say Disney World had for it. And it seemed like a lot of people were kind of welcoming it, or at least interested in it more. But I've seen most people are kind of okay with it. I rode the Disneyland version. And of course, I'm very familiar with the Disney World version.
The Disneyland version didn't have all the features of the one at Disney World. The elevator didn't move different directions. You basically got in and the dropping kind of started.
Yeah.
Disney World's very different. So yeah, I mean, people were not happy when they got rid of it at Disneyland, like Disney California Adventure.
Yeah.
But people now love the Guardians version.
Right.
So that worked. But I think the original Tower of Terror Hollywood Studios, that's kind of like sacred in theme park fans, kind of in their minds.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I
like,
think this could be cool.
Yeah, I feel like this entire headlines section of the show is me just worrying about all of my favorite things growing up changing, like Indiana Jones,
so
Space
true.
Jam, Jurassic Park, but / Jurassic World, and now Tower of Terror. It's like probably all the things that I used to do on a weekly basis, which was, you know, go to Disney, ride the ride, watch all my favorite movies, are now changing. It happens, but I don't know. We'll see if one of them can work. We'll see if one of them can work. I don't know.
I'm sorry, the headlines of the week have threatened your childhood.
I don't know if anything changes with with Tower of Terror. It just made me instantly think about, like, well, maybe with this, do they try and change the ride? Do they try and update it to some of the movies? Because that's how every single ride goes, is that if there's a new movie related around it and all those things, then stuff starts to change. Like, what isn't not to totally veer off, because we'll hop into the Loki episode 3 here in just a second. But isn't still what ride is it? One ride is supposed to change. That's like very, very well known, and I don't know why I cannot think of it right now. It's supposed to change, like Princess and the Frog.
Oh, Splash Mountain.
Yeah, when is that supposed to happen? Do we know? I remember that being talked about.
They announced it last year, but basically it's not really slated to be transformed for a while yet. So people who are going the next year or so probably will still have the original Splash Mountain for a while.
Yeah. So like I said, it just kind of speaks to it. Like, you know, they want to try to adapt the movies to be more similar to the rides so that you have the ability to experience it. I get it. It's just, you know, it is what it is. It is me mostly. It is me mostly being worried about my childhood, which is, you know.
I understand.
It happens.
I understand.
Should we move on?
We should move on.
Okay, let's move on to brighter things, as we'll now go and take a look at our Loki episode 3 recap.
I am Loki of Asgard, and I've been
falling for 30 minutes.
As we're taking a look at this episode titled Lamentis. I believe that's how you say it, right? Lamentis?
I believe so.
Okay. And as soon as I queued this up, I instantly was like, okay, what is Lamentis? Never heard of this before. And we obviously learn more about the planet as the episode goes on. But Lamentis in the comics is in fact a planet. Lamentis 1 specifically, which is the one that we are on in this particular episode, was a moon that in fact was habitable and is also located on the edge of Kree space. I don't know if you are aware of that, Savannah, but...
I actually read an article about that before we got on this morning. I'm sorry, but you did your homework and you did well. You did well.
Yes. Also coming into it, like, so these were just things that I was trying to think about. So I was like, okay, we're probably gonna visit this planet at some point. In fact, we're on it basically 95% of the time. And then also in the description of the episode, it also still refers to Lady Loki, Sylvie, however you really want to call her, whatever you want to call her, as the variant still, which I think is kind of interesting. Like, they're still kind of referring to her as that. Maybe that changes after this episode because now, you know, she kind of goes by the name of Sylvie. But, you know, we'll see how things continue to progress with her. As we start off this episode 3, totally caught off guard. I was very much caught off guard. Sylvie essentially starts off with C20, the same TVA agent that she had captured at the beginning of episode 2, whenever they were like back in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, back in like 1985. She captures that agent. We then see her at the very end of episode 2, and all she keeps basically saying is that she revealed to Lady Loki, aka Sylvie, that she let her know where in fact the timekeepers are at. And so we start off this episode with Sylvie and with C20. And they're at a resort. They're like hanging out at a restaurant. Looks very great. I'm very confused. I thought this was going to be a totally different angle. I'm like, okay, maybe Sylvie has treated C20 a lot better than we all thought, because a lot of people are still speculating Sylvie, is she good? Is she bad? Is the TVA good? Is the TVA bad? Who are the timekeepers? A lot of questions. And so I came into this being like very, very confused. And then we realize that Sylvie, in fact, has the enchantment power on C20 at this moment. And we'll kind of get into this a little bit later on in the episode because we learn more information about what was going on. But this was the moment where Sylvie is essentially enchanting C20. She's trying to figure out information on where the timekeepers are at. Obviously, she gets that information, but she does it by visiting a prior experience, some history, I guess you could say, with C20, an experience that she's had before at some point in her life. And that's how she gets the information. So again, it was a very interesting start to the episode, Savannah. I was very confused. I was like thinking we were going to go a different direction, and then as time goes on, I was like, okay, I get what's going on here. But how did you take the beginning of this? How did you take Sylvie's approach, basically making C20 think that she was in a dream?
I was also shocked when that song started on, like at the beginning of the episode. I'm like, what is going on? I was very confused, very confused. But then the pieces started to fall together a little bit. Yeah. And that was a pretty cool way of doing it. A great way to kick off the episode. Yeah,
without a doubt. And like I said, it almost kind of, I said it made it seem as if she was in a dream. It basically was as if she was in a dream, because it's like she eventually kind of snaps out of it. She realizes, wait, I don't even know who I'm talking to at this moment. But again, we get the recap essentially on how C20 gave her information on where the timekeepers are held, which was behind the golden elevators, is what she tells Sylvie. And then from there, we instantly jump into essentially where episode 2 left off. Sylvie makes her way into the TVA. And one thing that happens is that she realizes her powers don't work there. And I guess that kind of confirms that she's never been to the TVA before, because you would assume that if she has been there, she would know that, right?
That's a great point. I actually didn't pick up on that, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
Because she looks
surprised. Been there before, she would have known. Like, Loki is going to try to use their powers in any situation to get out of something. So yeah. So, yeah, that's a really good point you brought up there.
So at least in her own consciousness, because who knows if she, at some point in her history has been there. Maybe she doesn't remember it. But current Sylvie and her current, whatever you really want to call it, current mindset, has no idea that the fact that her powers do not work there. So she eventually uses brute force. She fights her way to get to those golden elevators. And when she does, she is confronted by Loki, in which he questions her, throughout a number of different exchanges. He, starts thinking, are you really Loki? Like, who are you actually? To which we don't really get a defined reply. And again, it kind of speaks to what would later happen on in the episode about, Sylvie's history. She doesn't really know what her backstory is for the most part. And then as they are kind of in this back and forth with each other for a moment, Renslayer then shows up and they go through a time door, which they get to the planet of Lamentis 1, which, like we said, is the title of this episode. Lamentis 1, this takes place in 2077, where essentially planets are starting to collide, which is one of the apocalyptic locations that Sylvie had on her TemPad. So we essentially make our way there. They escape from Renslayer, and it is interesting because I wonder, like, I almost question, like, why didn't they try to go through the doors first? Like, that was kind of my interpretation. Like, you're kind of in this situation where you are fighting with each other. I was just surprised that they didn't make a break for it. Like, I don't know, why didn't you try to hold them off? Like, their instant reaction was to try and disappear, which I get it for the show's sake.
I actually thought the same thing. Yeah, because I fully expected, okay, they're going to force their way in, and no, we ran away. Yeah. So, yeah, I thought that was odd as well.
Yeah, definitely a little bit different, but, we'll see what happens with that as the episode kind of progresses, because it's fair to say this episode, I hate to say filler, but it definitely was an episode of filler. Like, you think about where we started off on and how far we essentially got. We don't really get too far. Like, we obviously go to Lamentis. We get some really good character development. We learn more about these two. We learn more about their, connection with each other a little bit. We learn some very good information about the TVA. But considering how episode 1, specifically how episode 2 went in regards to information, and we'll jump more into this episode, but I think it is fair. This one was, without a doubt, the most filler episode that we've had yet.
I'm gonna be honest, and of course, me and you, we hadn't talked about our thoughts in the episode until right now.
Yeah.
So, I did not like this episode.
Okay. That's fair.
I did not. There were one or two moments that I enjoyed. I liked a couple of the reveals, but yeah, I was not a big fan, and just don't like the Sylvie character.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
I get that.
I'm kind of struggling with that. I'm struggling with that.
Right. Well, I understand it. Like I said, to me, it definitely felt like a filler episode, and it's hard when there's only 3 of them. But this one was without a doubt my least favorite. It's hard to say that, when you talk about certain shows. But I do agree. It wasn't my favorite episode, of course. Like I said, it's my least favorite that we've had so far in Loki. It felt like I said at times that, we were just kind of going through a few scenarios. Like, does this really matter? Whatever, really, whatever you want to take, whatever you really want to say. But yeah, really the only thing that this episode accomplished was the fact that we now know more about Loki and Lady Loki's combination together, slightly, I guess you could say. But as we progress, there are explosions happening everywhere. Loki and Sylvie essentially make their way into a little mine shaft building, where in that moment, Sylvie, who's not happy about the situation, attempts to enchant Loki as she is trying to get the Tim pad back and realizes that her powers don't work. She's 0 for 2. He says that his mind is too powerful. And in that moment, Sylvie, very frustrated, starts talking with Loki, tells him that he is messing up her plan that has been years in the making. And she also later goes on to say that Loki is no longer who I am anymore. And that Sylvie is kind of more of an alias. I think that was kind of picked up on a little bit. Like the way that she kind of goes about things now. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I would say the more interesting talking point of the two was kind of more on the plan, because again, in the TVA, time does work differently. So years in the making, like, do you think that very well could be much different, or do you think that they're trying to kind of coordinate that with a better, like, do you think that was the director's attempt at showing us like, hey, this has been a very long process, or do you think that there's something more deep in that being years in the making?
My first impression is that the writer and director is trying to show us that this has been, I don't think it's really that deep, the years in the making. I think it's just more to kind of show that she has put tons of effort and planning into this, and then Loki just blew it all for her. Right. That's what I think it meant, but who knows? You don't know with this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Very, very good point. And like I said, then she also goes on to say that Loki's no longer who I am anymore. And then as talking goes on, as the progress kind of continues, they eventually make their way to a house. Again, explosions are happening everywhere. They're trying to figure out exactly, how to survive. Where are the people on this planet? Where have they gone? Like I said, they stumble upon this house where a lady essentially owns them both with this cannon, is what I'll call it. And then they essentially ask, listen, where are the people at? Like, where are people located? And she lets them know that they are essentially at a train trying to get to the Ark ship, which will then allow for them to get off of the planet. Which took a little bit of explaining. Like, I came to you, Savannah, and I was like, I don't really know like the terminology for everything, because she said that they were at the Ark, yet the Ark at the very end of the episode is different than this, because this is more of a train. But I thought that it was interesting, because in that moment when they're trying to get into that lady's house, and then whenever they get to the train, there are two different things going on. Them working together gets them what they want, but them not working together doesn't accomplish anything. I thought that was kind of an interesting moment. It was subtle yet not subtle at the same time, but it just kind of goes to show whenever they're working together, they have the ability to accomplish a lot more, which very well will probably be the trend moving into the next episodes.
Agreed. Yeah, it was subtle but not subtle.
Right.
Exactly. You can tell that's the message they were trying to get across, for sure.
Yeah. And then they make their way inside of the train. Spoiler alert, they obviously make it inside, and they begin to talk about each other, begin to kind of learn some more information. And then we also learned that Sylvie was also adopted. But whenever they talk about their mothers, I guess you could say mothers, I really have no idea.
Who knows?
Sylvie basically says that her memories of her mom, her memories in general, are just blimps of a dream at this point. And I don't know if that confirms, but in my head, that told me that her timeline very well could have been erased. Maybe the timekeepers have erased her memory, as we'll talk about that more with the TVA agents. To me, that kind of expressed that most likely is the driving force behind what has been this year in the making process, where she's trying to bomb the sacred timeline, and maybe she's trying to open up her own timeline that's been destroyed because she no longer remembers what happened. And so in order for her to remember what happened, she has to do what she's doing because she doesn't remember anything.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this part up because I do feel like the phrasing of blips of a dream, maybe I'm just oversaturated in Marvel lore, but I feel like now when I hear the word blip,
Yeah,
I think of the name for the Thanos snap.
that's true. Yeah.
Maybe I'm looking like too deep into that. But it makes me wonder, either her timeline could have been erased by timekeepers, probably what's actually happening. But I also wonder if the Thanos snap has anything to do with the TVA and all the chaos going on. So I don't
That's
know.
true.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
But
it
the
is an
word
interesting
blip
choice of
always
words.
gets my attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and obviously when we talk about dialogue, some things are, off the top of the head, but with how specific they need to be with their language and with the way they communicate, I feel like you have to imagine like that word was put in there fully aware of like how people are going to take this, whether or not it's just kind of like an explanation to like, use similar words as time goes on or not. I agree. I didn't really think about that at the time, but after you mention it, it definitely makes it more interesting. Definitely, kind of puts it into perspective a little bit better. But moving on, like I said, she possibly confirms, a number of different things, but essentially we learned that she doesn't really know what her history is. She doesn't really remember things the same way that Loki does. And then as time goes on, we also see that Loki is singing, possibly drunk, who really knows? And he also does sing a few songs. I did watch one breakdown video where they were talking about this, that he may have been singing some Asgardian songs to see if she recognized that, which I thought was slightly fascinating.
That is actually true. A good rule of thumb out there for Marvel fans: always watch the episodes with the closed captioning on.
Oh, yes.
Reveals a lot. And that's how I watched it this morning. And it came up when he was singing. It showed Asgardian song.
Oh, okay. So that confirms it. Cool.
That confirms it. Yes.
Very interesting. Because there was kind of like this moment where she's like, "What are you doing? Like, what's going on here? Like, why are you dressed in your TVA outfit in comparison to the guard outfit that you were wearing?" And then it does alert a few people on the train. And I wonder if we'll see like a few of those guys. Like, I think there was one guy in particular who kind of gave him like a dirty look and like instantly went to the back, maybe to like assure people. But that's just like a face, a guy that I'm going to try and remember just to see if anything happens. It very well may not. Maybe it comes into play in the following episode. I'm really, not 100% sure, but, just something to kind of think about. And then from there, they realize that they do not have tickets and they get thrown off the train. And whenever they get thrown off the train, both Sylvie and Loki, the temp pad unfortunately does break as Loki fell. And I didn't really explain it at the very beginning, but essentially they're trying to charge back up the temp pad. If you've not watched the episode, trying to charge back up the temp pad so they can get back to where they were, or at least get back to another universe that is not exploding before their very eyes. Speaking of that, the planet still blowing up, very frustrating, yet they still do find some time to talk with each other. And I feel like a lot of people discussed that we learned more about Loki, like Loki kept revealing himself. And maybe it's because we already know so much about Loki, but I feel like we learned, without a doubt, more information about Sylvie than, I think that Loki learned more information about Sylvie than Sylvie learned about Loki himself, which I thought to me was the more interesting of the two. She also revealed how she enchants people. I grabbed a quote which basically says that I have to make physical contact and grab hold of their mind. Most are easy. The strong ones, it can get tricky. I have to create a fantasy from their memories. And that is how she's able to do that. And then she also went on to explain, and probably the biggest scene I think that we learned from this, is that when she did that particular enchantment to C20, she had to pull a memory from hundreds of years prior before she joined the TVA. Sylvie also revealed that they were not created by the timekeepers, that being the TVA agents. Instead, they are all variants just like us. Loki goes on to say, the TVA agents, they don't know that they're variants. They have no idea that the agents do not know that they're aware of this. They do not know that they are just variants, simply like us. And then also in the comics, that is actually exactly what the Timekeepers did quite often. They would remove variants from Nexus timelines, wipe their memories, and then basically make them work for themselves. So that was, I think without a doubt, at least in my eyes, Savannah, the biggest thing that we learned was, in fact, that the rumor that had been kind of going around a little bit, making some waves, is in fact that the TVA are also variants.
100%. This was the heart of the episode for me. This is really what I tuned in for, to get some answers here.
Yeah.
And yeah, the biggest moment of the episode, 100%.
Yeah.
And quite a reveal. Really, it was. And of course, my thought immediately went to Mobius, and I think Loki's did too.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mobius, he believes this is all that he was created by the Timekeepers, and this is his glorious purpose, as he said in episode 2. And that's not the case. Right.
And then also it could explain, why certain TVA agents don't really understand exactly what's going on. Like, again, I forget the character's name, but the guy who doesn't really know what a fish is, like, how does that really make sense? And then
He's my fave.
And then also we talk about Mobius as well. In the comics, he is originally from like 1990. So like he's from around that time period, and that could explain the jet ski. That could explain why he has this memory of, enjoying jet skis. Maybe he was taken during that time. Maybe he just had a passion for whatever reason riding jet skis. And so that those little memories are almost kind of trickling through their minds of like, why do I remember this? Why do I have a passion for something that I know nothing about? So that, like we said, reveals something major that all of the agents are apparently going through. So major reveal. And then at the very end of the episode, they basically make a last second run for it to try to get to the Ark ship, but essentially it blows up before they can get there in time. So that means that not once, twice, but 3 times their plan to try and get off of the planet is it doesn't work. It fails. So that's honestly, the episode kind of ended abruptly. I think it was like a 36-37 minute runtime, which is without a doubt the shortest episode that we've had. And I know that was kind of for me like a little bit of a frustrating moment, because I just wanted to see them at least get off the planet rather than just stay there. But I did take an interesting note from one article. I forget who it was by, but I thought it was honestly interesting, and you may not agree with this, but I think that this episode was similar. It almost kind of felt like a Mandalorian episode, because it's like they're on this wasteland of a planet. They're trying to get answers. We're getting dialogue, but the majority of it is like a lot of action. And the Lamentus One soldiers almost kind of felt like stormtroopers by the way that they kept getting in the way. There was a lot of action, a lot of little moments here and there. You have some dialogue, characters trying to figure out their backstory, same way that Mando is. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting correlation. Like I didn't pick up on that until the article, but I thought that was a good way of putting it. It did kind of feel a little bit like a Mandalorian episode in certain ways that it was shot, in certain ways that this episode felt.
I can understand that. I can understand that. Personally speaking, again, I think Mandalorian filler episodes have been better than this one, but I do get some of the parallels.
Yeah. I didn't mind the episode. I always hate, fillers whenever you do get them, but I will say I was not, I would say as negative feeling about the episode as you were. I feel like we still did get some good information. I'm just fascinated in general with like anything time related. So that could very well explain to me like why I enjoy every second of it. But I guess some things to take away. I think like, top 4 biggest takeaways from this episode. Number 1, TVA agents are in fact variants. Lady Loki / Sylvie doesn't really know her backstory. We also know more.
I'm going to stop you there for one second.
Go ahead.
Does she not have a backstory, or does she just not want to reveal it?
I don't know, because
I kind of felt like.
Go ahead.
I felt, I guess part of my frustration maybe, and again, I didn't hate the episode when I come across that way. I guess just in comparison, episode 1 and 2, which like blew my mind. This one was a little bit like, but I was more frustrated with the lack of information we got from her. I feel like the only real information we got was that she too was adopted. She taught herself enchantment, and she revealed like that huge bomb of news about the TVA.
Right.
And the thing is too, Loki is an anti-hero. He's a villain, but he's a hero. Even when he's being a full-out villain, you still like him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If she is another Loki, if she's Lady Loki, I don't feel that same way. Like, I honestly don't believe that she's, how I say
You're
it?
not sold.
I'm not sure if she is a Loki.
Oh, okay. I see.
And if she is, I don't feel like how they're portraying her sells that fact, if that makes sense. Think of back to episode 2 in the Rocks Cart store, and she like took over different bodies of the people in the Rocks Cart store, and they were pretending to be like Loki. Like, you're like impressed. You're like, wow, they're really like mimicking Loki. You kind of believe that they're kind of like Loki. I didn't feel that from her.
Really? Okay.
I'm a little I'm confused. I'm kind of frustrated with an additional set of questions that I didn't feel like really related to our variant Loki storyline, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we all know that they're going to likely survive.
Right.
You know what I mean? And most likely it's going to be Mobius, right? Is that your prediction? You think how they're going to get saved?
No, actually. You want to know how I think they get off of it?
Let's get into it. Tell me.
Okay, so the way that I think they get off of Lamentis 1 is, and I'm still pretty sure about this, I don't know for a fact, but doesn't Loki keep the time stone from episode 1? He doesn't put it back, does he?
Oh my gosh. I have not thought about that.
Because I don't, and I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive because I've been thinking about this. Because he's able to, I don't know the exact terminology, but let's just say like morph things like into his body so he can keep things at the same way that he did with the one device. I don't think he's able to do that necessarily with the time stone, but I'm sure that he has to have it because there were plenty of them there. I'm pretty sure he held on to one and kept it. And so I think we could have this revelation of like, maybe they're sitting together, they're thinking about stuff, and then it like falls out of his pocket, or it's just like, wait, what the heck? Like, I forgot I just have this. And then right as like things begin to turn, sour, turn sideways, he figures out a way to like reverse things, or, I feel like we learn more information about like all the stones as time goes on, but figures out a way to either get on the Ark ship to leave or to figure out how to get to, a safer place, get back to where they came from. That's how I think they escape.
That is brilliant, actually. If that happens, I will love that. I will
too, because it kind of gives homage to the times, or rather gives homage to the Infinity Stones, because it's like these things are still powerful. Just because they're not in the TVA doesn't mean that they are, one-offs, which I appreciate it. Like, so I thought the reveal that they had whenever in episode 1 where the time stones did not work, or rather all the stones did not work, I thought was great. But I also think that it's important for them to like showcase like, hey, you know what? While that was a thing, let's make sure that we're clear. The Infinity Stones are very important. Like, the Infinity Stones are still very powerful despite in this current universe, wherever they may be, that they're not. But yeah, that's how I think they get off. I think that he figures out that he has the time stone.
That makes perfect sense. And, writing 101, you don't bring up something and then not pay it off later.
That's true.
So
yeah,
that makes perfect sense. I think I have been reading about like Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston have been talking about kind of like when the two characters reunite later on in the series. And so I've been thinking about, well, probably Mobius is going to come in and save the day last minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very well could. Yeah.
But like, that's kind of predictable. So I like your theory better. So I
appreciate that. Yeah, we'll see. Like, I wouldn't mind whatsoever if Mobius were to like show up. However, again, you could kind of speculate in a number of different ways how things could go. And then maybe that sets up the conversation between Mobius, Sylvie, and Loki to then like figure out, okay, like, something's going on. Now we got to figure out, how to overthrow the Timekeepers, or at least maybe that conversation gets started in the next episode.
Right.
But we'll see. Like I said, I think Time Stone for me is the most likely scenario, but it very well could be Mobius. And again, we talked about these two characters. Whenever they're working together, they always seem to figure it out, and obviously they'll figure it out. They'll figure out something on how to get off the point, but we'll see.
Another question on that.
Yeah.
Did you pick up, like, are we supposed to think that they're romantic?
I
Is
don't
there like a
know.
relation? I couldn't tell. I feel like one moment I'd be like, okay, I see where this is going. And the next moment I didn't think that at all.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of my critique was of the episode. Let's say that they're not setting up a romance. And there is some like speculation out there already that Sylvie, Lady Loki, is not going to survive the series. I don't I wouldn't think they would do that, but you never know. You never know.
Right.
Let's say they're not romantic. Let's say she doesn't survive. What this episode accomplished is it revealed information about the TVA and revealed a bit more about Loki himself, and that's kind of it.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
a good
kind of why I
point.
was a little bit.
Yeah,
That's why I was a little bit frustrated.
that makes
And I
sense.
felt
Yeah, in
like
retrospect, this episode very well could not be useful at all because we're gonna have a character that outside of Loki doesn't really matter. And then we just learned slightly a little bit more about Loki, and as you said, that's kind of it. Obviously, the TVA as
that
well, but you know,
right. I think that was again why I've been critical.
that makes sense.
Just think it probably would have been great for any other series, but just considering how much information we got in the first 2 episodes, I was kind of like, oh, that's it. That's as far
Yeah.
as we got.
I will
You know
say,
what I mean?
I think for
But
me,
I could be wrong.
I didn't mind the fact that we had a little bit of like, I'll say this. Would I have liked more information? Absolutely. But I don't mind the idea, if that makes sense, of because the amount of information that we got in episode 1, specifically episode 2, was insane. Like we got all kinds of information, we got terminology, we got backstory, we got all kinds of things, so many, different angles now that the story is going in. I didn't mind that things slowed down a little bit to the point where it's like, okay, we can finally slow down on information and kind of figure things out and maybe sift through the ideas and kind of get some official story. So I will say, I think if this episode would have had the same amount of info, the same amount of story that the last one at least had, I think that we would all be lost and it would be kind of like information overload. Now, I will say
that's a very good point.
But I will say it was a little too slow, but I feel like if they would have, I don't know, just thrown in like something extra, thrown in something a little bit different, however you really wanted to phrase it, I think that people would have liked it a little bit more. But I will say, I think the reason why I liked it more than maybe most might, or maybe on par with a few other people, is because I was just happy that we didn't leave an episode being like, okay, now we have 10 questions. It's like, I still have those questions, but I have some more time to sit on it while watching Loki, if that makes sense.
I get that completely. That's a very good point.
So
I'm with you.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, by no means was it my favorite episode. Like I said, it's my least favorite Loki episode that we've had. Same thing with you. But who knows? Like I said, maybe and sometimes episodes pay off a lot better in the following one. Like sometimes that kind of works out where you're like, oh my gosh, that sequence, or maybe that line of dialogue, maybe the story progression that we get, the character backstory, the relationship that they have, maybe that factors into the future and it makes you like the previous episode more. So that very well could be a thing too. We'll see.
Very true. And that's what Marvel loves to do anyway.
Yes, that's true. Very, very good point.
I will remain optimistic.
And I will say episode 4 and 5, for those that have seen this, I don't know if I mentioned it last week. We may have just talked about this, but I did mention this to, I forget who I talked. Maybe it was you, maybe it wasn't. I don't remember. But Tom Hiddleston did an interview on BBC where he talked about how episode 4 and 5 are his favorites, and that those are the 2 that he is most interested in to see how the audience reacts. Because he said that the story kind of goes in a totally different direction than how he originally thought that it would. So I don't know if maybe because like again, I don't know how he read the script. He very well could have read the entire thing and thought that. Like, oh wow, this one's a little bit different. But could it be that episode 3, the information that we learned, not that it's not valid, but it goes in a totally different direction than we think? Because I mean, honestly, I don't really know what happens in episode 4. Like we kind of roughly have a good idea. Like we kind of roughly knew what was going to happen in this episode, that Loki was going to chase down Sylvia. I figured that we were going to kind of get at least an idea for what her plans are. There's probably going to be some character development between the 2, and that overall happened. Because it wasn't exactly what I thought, but for him to say that episode 4 and 5 are totally different, I think is exciting. And it just continues to make this series, I guess you could label it unpredictable.
I agree. No, that's really intriguing news. And Hiddleston has been in the MCU for a long time. He's seen a lot of stuff go
Yeah.
down. So if something shocked and surprised him, he's got my attention.
Without a doubt. Like I said, excited to see how that one goes. And then the final note that I think we should discuss before we move on, as we've literally just hit, I think, the hour marker about to. One thing that I did want to mention is that I did some research, and I know that some people know this, but I didn't know the full detail of Sylvie's character. Now, I know there's a lot of different things. There's Enchantress, there's Sylvie, there's Lady Loki. Like, there's all kinds of characters that could be combined. It could be one of the two. I know there's even like there's a lot of different comics that are out there that describe, what could be her character in a variety of different ways. But I did do some research on Sylvie Lushton, which is also would be later known as Enchantress. And I know that you mentioned that she did live in Oklahoma. Now, I don't know if you know the full story behind it, but essentially Asgard decided to go there. And then again, I went to Marvel Wiki, where they give, background information on a certain comic, and I had to sift through a few things. But essentially in one of the comics, she essentially wakes up one day and just has powers. And she believes she has a backstory. Like, she believes that, she's from Oklahoma, she has a family, all these things. But it's assumed, and this is the exact quote, it's assumed that she was in fact never alive until she was created by Loki, her existence and memories perhaps being part of this. But no one officially knows if Loki created her or if he just gave her her powers. She does not know her past. So,
well, that's intriguing.
Yes. So like I said, they could take bits and pieces from any part of this, but she did live in Oklahoma, according to this comic. Asgard decided to put themselves in Oklahoma. She woke up one day and she had powers. At least that's what she thinks. But maybe she had a storyline and then it got changed up. Or she was created by Loki. Now, I don't know if they're going to go the route of created by Loki, because I don't really know how that exactly works. I think that she, being the character that we have in Loki, being Sylvie, maybe she is a variant, or maybe for whatever reason, I was trying to think about this super far in the future. Maybe this series is about another Loki variant that's in control, and that Loki variant maybe made her think that she was also a Loki variant and gave her powers. I really don't know, but I thought that quote, at the very least, the description of her comic about how she doesn't know her past, and then now we get into this episode and she talks about how she doesn't know her past. Is that true? It very well could not be. She may know her past, depending on the character that they go with in the Loki series. But I thought that it was interesting that in this, she doesn't know her past, and it's talked about that Loki may have created her, Loki may have given her powers, all of those things.
Wow. Yeah. I'm processing.
I know. I did the same thing. I watched it after the episode, or I looked this up after the episode, and I'm like, wait, hold on a second. I'm like, how does this...
Well, that may be why I don't buy the fact that she's a Loki.
Yeah.
Because she's not.
Yeah, she very well may not be. Or maybe...
And that could be why she has one of the little horns is broken off of her little headband thing.
Yeah, to kind of signify, to give a virtual or a...
this is not
a visual
Loki.
cue. Yeah. And then I think she takes it off at the very end of the episode. So maybe that's I know that we talk about symbolism and stuff. Maybe that was her, realizing that maybe she's not who she thinks that she is. And so, I don't know. There's a lot of things that you can take from it. There are so many minute details that could come about, but I thought that was very, very interesting. It's something to think about for those that are obviously listening. Something to think about. Maybe, she's a deeper character than we think. Maybe she's not just a simple Loki variant, or maybe she was tricked into thinking that she's a Loki variant. Because like I said, the biggest thing that I took away from this episode was not just that the TVA are variants, but that she doesn't know her past. And if that is in fact true, that could be what sets her on track to have motivation to take all these years and try to mess with the TVA, because maybe the only thing that she knows is that the TVA was involved in her not knowing her backstory, or at least not knowing her history. And that, I think that's oftentimes, from what we've seen in prior movies, and I can't think of a specific one, but that is always a really good, or at least an easily understandable motivation for a character to have, is that I don't know where I'm from. I don't know my history, but by not knowing it, my motivation is to figure out who I am, where I am, all of those things. So I think that very well could be her story, and her, like I said, her motivation for spending all those years to try and mess with the TVA and the sacred timeline.
I think you're onto something. I really, really do. And yeah, a lot to speculate between now and next week. A lot of good material there.
Yeah, without a doubt. Oh man, but I'm excited. I'm excited for episode 4. Like I said, that's
Oh, of course,
Tom
yes,
Hiddleston
absolutely.
mentioned that yeah, like I said, it's going to be one of his favorite episodes of the entire series. That in episode 5, and like I said, he says that the series goes in a totally different direction. So I don't already know where the show is going. I really don't know like what direction we're going to go in. So the fact that we are going to have even maybe any inclination that we would have moving forward is totally different could be very exciting. And also, the last thing that I will mention, and we'll finally move on. The last thing that I will mention is, and I had this thought throughout the entirety of the episode, and I'm not sure that you did either, but was this entire episode, and I hope that it wasn't, but was this entire episode, and I don't believe that it was, an enchantment from her? Do you think that Sylvie was making all this a projection for him?
Ooh.
And so that's how it goes in a totally different direction, because Loki's like, I thought I could trust her. I thought I knew who she was. We have like this little nice moment where she reveals a little bit about herself, that she doesn't know her past, you know, little things like that. But in reality, she was messing with him the entire time, and she's a lot more powerful than we thought.
I had a thought at one point that seeing how her powers, mind control kind of, and then we saw too at the Roxcart store how she can like take over different bodies and things. I'm like, okay, is the real villain of the show pretending to be this person?
Yeah.
And Loki's going to like trust her but not trust her because he thinks this is another version of himself. Like what if that's like King the Conqueror at work or something like that? But that's a kind of a big jump. That was like kind of early on in the episode. I kind of had that thought, but I'm like, no, maybe not. But the fact you two think that maybe what we just saw wasn't reality, I don't know. I'm starting to think maybe we might be onto something there.
Yeah, like I really don't know, and I would hate to assume that, because I hate when TV shows do that, where it's like, oh, what you just witnessed wasn't even real. Like, you know, the whole thing with like certain TV shows,
matters,
the Lost angle, like all this was actually a dream, but it wasn't a dream. It's like, okay, whatever. I hope that's not the case, but again, you don't really know what to take it when the main actor in the entire TV show, when he read the script, basically said that, wow, the show goes in a totally different direction than what I thought. That could be very subtle. It could be like, you know, and what he thought episode 4 would be, to where maybe both the characters are together and maybe they're not. It could be simple. It also could be major. Again, like we said, we really have no idea. So with that, just continues to boil our minds on what we think, how we think the rest of the series is going to go.
Boil our minds. I like that. That's pretty accurate.
Yes, because like I felt like with Falcon the Winter Soldier, with WandaVision, I felt like we knew where the show roughly was going, like where it could be headed. Like I said, with Loki right now, I legitimately have no clue. Like I really have no idea what could be next. And then ultimately, like how the series could potentially end. Like I obviously know that the TVA is going to be involved, but that's about it.
I have nothing concrete anyway. Nothing concrete, just wild speculation.
Yeah. That's why
I can't wait till next Wednesday. Like we need to keep this rolling.
Yes, we do. So with that, again, you know, great conversations on Loki episode 3. Feel free to let us know in the comments of this video. If you're listening, feel free to tweet at us at Real Convo. Tweet at both of us. Obviously, our Twitter handles are on screen. What you thought about episode 3? You know, did you like it? Did you dislike it? Things you liked, things maybe you didn't. How you think that episode 4 could in fact be set up after, again, another interesting episode filled with questions. A slower one, but maybe it could very well be the most advanced one that we've seen yet, and we just don't know that. That would be very Loki-esque. But with that, let's go and move on to our next segment. It's actually our first one that we've ever done of this, and it's called Top 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. So what we're going to be doing is, like I said, this is a series called Top 5, and it's going to be something that we kind of evolve, throughout Real Conversation episodes where we do top 5 this, top 5 that. And Sven, you actually had this idea when we were kind of brainstorming ideas to go over our top 5 summer movies, which I'm very excited about. I did a little bit of research coming into this, kind of looking at different movies, getting some ideas on where my top 5 ranks. But yeah, I'm excited to do this. I think this could be fun, and I'm excited to do more top 5s on whatever it could be. It's unlimited.
Yeah, I thought maybe kind of ending or kind of closing out the show with something that's not just like related to current news, but kind of something that's you know, going to stay with us. Like we can revisit old movies.
Right.
We can kind of get into nostalgia a little bit. It's not so tied to a specific timeline.
Right.
And I kind of thought maybe kicking it off with summer movies would be great because Sunday, June 20th was the official first day of summer. And I feel like summer and movies are kind of go hand in hand, like summer blockbusters. And there are certain movies for me that I will like only watch certain times of year. That may sound a little crazy, but like there are certain movies that I save for summer. And I kind of have a bit of a ranking. And so I am curious to hear what yours are because I really have no idea.
Yeah. And like I said, I know we keep talking about, get involved, like make sure to do that. But feel free, like I said, at any point during this, let us know what your top 5 summer movies are as well. Now, I didn't ask for the criteria because I did this on purpose, but are you ranking your top 5 summer movies as in like these movies take place in summer, or that along with the fact that you just enjoy watching these movies for whatever reason during the summertime?
Kind of both,
okay,
honestly.
Perfect. That's what I did too. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yay!
I don't know why I went for this particular list. Some of them take place during summer. Most of them do. But some of them do not. But whenever I thought of like summer, and I did look at some videos, or rather some countdowns, or some articles, I did get some better clarification on at least my list in particular. So how do you want to do this?
Gotcha.
Should we go you give your top 5, I give my top 5, or should we go like hand in hand, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Like you give your 5th, I give my 5th, you give your 4th, I give mine. How do you want to do that?
I think we should do that. I think we should both share our 5
Okay.
and then our 4 and go work our way up to the top.
Okay.
And I think too, we ought to see if we can guess each other's picks at some points.
Okay. Maybe we
If
choose
possible.
each other's first one after we get some information about the others.
Okay. Sounds good.
So you want to start or should I?
You start.
Okay. So I do have and I'll read this at the very end. I do have some honorable mentions, and again, these are not the top 5 summer movies all time. This is my top 5 favorite summer movies of all time.
This is personal.
Yeah, this
is
without a doubt personal. There could be some on this list that you're like, oh my gosh, why did he not? Why didn't he choose that? It's just not my favorite movie for whatever reason. So, with that in mind, the number 5 movie that I have for top 5 summer movies of all time in my personal list is The Sandlot. I am a huge fan of The Sandlot. I have watched the movie multiple times. I'll be honest, I haven't watched it in a few years, but that movie to me at least epitomizes what summer is kind of about: hanging out with your friends, playing baseball. The story is great. And it's like, I think it was made like in the mid 90s, like early 90s. And it just kind of epitomizes like what movies were back then. And I think the fact that it's focused around on kids makes me think about, my history during summer, because really, you really only care about summer for the most part. Yeah, I would say this, but if you're a teacher, which of course you were, but if you're a student, that means the summer's more important to you. And so it kind of instantly made me think like, oh, I'm going to go with the Sandlot angle, because it without a doubt makes me think about summer because of the time period, the way they told the story. And yeah, that's how I got it.
That's a great pick.
Thank you.
I like it.
Thank you.
I approve. So my number 5, I actually reshuffled my list earlier today.
Okay.
And I didn't originally have this movie on the list, but I had to put it there. Okay. So it's kind of like a late arrival to my list. And it's actually the remake of The Parent Trap.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
That's fair.
And the reason why that movie I used to watch in the summer when I was growing up, I would have it on repeat. It kind of takes place in the summer. They're at summer camp. I don't know why.
True.
I feel like that just makes me think of summertime and like that soundtrack. You think of like being outside and sunshine and like an adventure. And so, yeah, if I'm being true to kind of like my criteria of a movie that makes me feel like summer or that I want to watch in the summer, it's got to be that.
I respect that. That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that pick. I didn't really think about it at the very beginning that they are at summer camp. I don't know why I didn't like, as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, okay, like I can see that. And then you brought that up and I'm like, oh, that is literally a summer movie. So that makes sense. I like that pick. All right.
Thank you.
Should we do a snake draft where you pick your fourth and then I go after you, or should I just go straight to mine?
We can do that. I can go again, or whatever you prefer.
You go again.
Okay, that actually works out because my number 4 is also The Sandlot.
Nice.
I know. For everything that you said, it encapsulates childhood summer, and it feels like summertime. I think it happens over the 4th of July, I believe, in one scene. But like they're playing baseball, they're going to the pool, they're having sleepovers in a treehouse. I mean, that movie is summer, in my opinion. So I could not leave it off my list. So that's my number 4.
Agreed. Very, very solid movie. And no surprise. I thought that it might be on your list. I thought that it may like be around the 4, 5, 6 region whenever I came into it. Cause I'm like, I know that you like The Sandlot. It's not like our favorite movie, but it just seems like it needs to be on the list in some form or fashion.
It does.
So I'll move on to my 4th movie. Like I said, Sandlot's at 5. Number 4, and I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't know why 100%, but I just really like this movie, and it kind of made me think about summer. I know we talk about, all the Indiana Jones movies, you can kind of, position them the way that you want. It's honestly not my favorite Indiana Jones movie, but as time has gone on, I've learned to like it a lot more. But I don't know. I love the iconic scenes that are in this one. I mean, you could list off a number of different ones, but I think the story is really fascinating. And for whatever reason, like if I were to think about like going to see a random movie in the summer, well, I do like The Last Crusade slightly more than this one. I still really like this one a lot. And obviously, with the history that this one has, it has the most iconic scene in it with the, the Rock and, stealing the head statue and all those things. I don't know. This movie to me just epitomizes what it's like to go see a summer blockbuster. And I think that it is, it's arguably Harrison Ford at his best.
Well said.
Thank you.
Put.
Thank you.
Put. So my number 3 is also Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Nice. Oh wait, I was supposed to go twice. I forgot. I was supposed to go twice.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I messed it up.
It's fine. I love that we have similar lists. This is good. Okay.
I know when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, we really are related. So if we ever had a doubt. All right, how do we fix this since I just messed it up?
So what, you've given your I'll just go again. Like I'll go twice now. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I'll list my 3, my 2, then you list your 2, your 1, and then I'll list my 1.
Should I elaborate on my
Sure, yes, Raiders? Definitely.
Okay, I'll do that really quick, and then then I'll let you kind of guide me through here because math is hard. But yeah, Raiders summer movie again. I actually didn't come to Indiana Jones until I was probably like in middle school, and I remember it clearly. It was 4th of July weekend, and like TNT or TVA'S had an Independence weekend, and they just played all 3 movies like over and over again. And I happened to just catch Raiders like halfway, and I could not stop watch Temple of Doom after that, and then right into Last Crusade. And then I believe like the next day I went to like Walmart or Target and bought the box set of the VHS tapes and wore them out. So that is like when I think of summer, I think of Indiana Jones. And actually Raiders is my favorite Indiana Jones.
It's definitely like number 1 and number 2 for me for sure as well.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just really like that Last Crusade. I don't know why. I just really like that one.
No, Last Crusade's amazing. It's awesome. I for whatever reason I just grabbed it, probably because Raiders was my first one I saw.
Well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. All right, we've been somewhat similar so far. I was gonna say this is a movie that you haven't listed off yet, but that's not really saying a whole lot considering the only one that I feel like we haven't said the same on is Parent Trap. My number 3 movie, so like I said, I'm at Sandlot, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and number 3 for me, Independence Day. Now, I will say,
Nice.
I only watched Independence Day, and I'm talking about the original one from like 1996. I only watched it recently, but you told me that it is basically epitomizes summer. It's the perfect movie to watch during the summertime. Obviously, it relates around that. Of course, it's called Independence Day, for God's sake. So there you go. But I really, really like that movie a lot. It to me is like a perfect 90s movie. I really just enjoy 90s movies in general. But just
90s
like the way
action flicks
Yes.
are the best.
and just like the
Because
way
they're
that it was.
intense, but they're fun.
That's exactly
You have
right.
like the best of both.
Yes, that's exactly right. And just with the characters involved, like I thought that was great. Just the storyline itself was quite fascinating. But again, it just to me epitomizes like 90s action, as you said. There's just a lot of different things going on. There's intensity kind of throughout the movie, and then you kind of have like the cool. As I don't really know how to explain it exactly. All that I can really say is that I just really, really liked it a lot. And as you said, it literally is like the definition of a summer movie because it's Independence Day. So with that, it is action,
Good
and
pick.
that's exactly what you want. I feel like whenever we talk about summer movies, you want a good action thriller, something that kind of has you on the edge of your seat, but also includes some high level actors, and that's what this one has, of course.
It's a popcorn movie at its core.
I like that. Very, very well said.
Thank you. By the way, on that note, you now need to watch Deep Impact, which is another
That's right. You do. Yeah, you told me about that. I forgot.
very similar concept. Well, in some ways, they came out around the same time period because in the 90s, like end of the world, destruction, disaster movies were the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Different tone. I'll talk to you more about it, but I want you to see Deep Impact and kind of give me some thoughts on that.
Okay. I'm cool with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we'll continue though. We'll continue.
All right. So is it my second one now?
Go ahead. Let's do that.
That's right.
Let's do
Okay.
that.
I totally forgot. You
Your
slightly
pick.
messed up earlier, and I nearly did the exact same thing. I was like getting ready
It's
to toss it over to
cool.
you. All right.
It's cool.
So like I said, I currently have Sandlot at 5, Raiders of the Lost Ark at 4, Independence Day at 3, number 2, The Goonies. I absolutely love
I knew
The
this would be on
Goonies.
your list. I knew it.
I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's without a doubt top 10. I honestly haven't, combined my list in a very long time, but it very well could be top 5. I don't know 100%, but I just absolutely love this movie. It's great. I watched it like a long time ago. I would say like maybe, I wouldn't say like a long time ago, but I watched like a good 8-9 years ago, and I absolutely loved it. And then from that moment, it instantly kind of became one of my favorites. It just kind of continues to remind me of like the Sandlot type of story where it's, young kids who are kind of going through a story. They're great actors. It's a really, interesting setup to where, it's like has mystery involved, and then also at the same time it has action. It's just a very good combination. And I don't know, I just really am a big fan of the way this movie works all the way throughout. I think it's a really solid movie, and it's one of the movies that I feel like can easily be slept on. And I don't know how to explain it 100%, but I feel like it's not underrated, but I still feel like it is underrated. I don't know.
I get that. Like people know about the Goonies,
Yeah.
but it doesn't always kind of make it into like that top tier.
Right.
It seems like.
Agreed.
But solid pick.
Thank
Also,
you.
that came from Spielberg's company Amblin.
Look at that.
So hey, make something like that for Netflix.
Oh my gosh,
you know?
that would be amazing. But do not call it
know.
the Goonies like reimagined, or make it
No.
different. Make it similar, but don't make the Goonies again.
Correct. 100%.
All right, now it's time for your number 2 pick.
Yes, my number 2. So recap: my 5 was Parent Trap, 4 Sandlot, 3 Raiders, and continuing on the Spielberg train, I'm going with Jaws.
Oh yes.
Going with Jaws. I love Jaws. Lana knows I'm obsessed with Jaws.
Yes.
So yeah, and it also takes place over the 4th of July.
Yep.
So set in the summertime. And I also love the history surrounding Jaws. Came out in 1975, was the first blockbuster. Like that term was applied for the first time to a movie with Jaws.
Right.
And back then they did not put big movies in theaters in the summertime. They just didn't. They thought people would be outside and want to go to a theater. So Jaws like changed movies and like movie schedules and the studio system itself. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
So I have to pick Jaws, and I always watch Jaws in the summertime, usually over 4th of July weekend. It's a personal rule.
Yeah, I know near us we have or rather near you, now that I've moved, but I know it was like a tradition on like a lake that was near us to where everyone could watch the movie Jaws like while on a bunch of pontoon boats and stuff. They have like a screen in the center of the lake and people could just sit there and watch it. I feel like that would be so much fun, yet also so terrifying at the same time.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, at a marina nearby. But a lot of people, like, you can bring your boat and watch it, like watch the screen on the shore from your boat. But most people will actually float in inner tubes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love the idea, but yeah, that would mess with me.
Uh-huh.
I love the concept. Love the concept.
I agree. A very, very solid pick. Should we go to your number one?
Yeah, do we want to guess each other's number one?
Yes. So I'm going to guess, and I don't know which one it is going to be exactly. Is your number one a Star Wars movie? I'm going to go very broad.
It is not.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
I'm shocked as well. I
Okay.
know.
All right. Well, that was my guess. I don't know what it is.
Me to tell you or me to guess yours?
You can guess mine.
Okay. I actually thought your number one was going to be The Goonies originally,
Okay.
but you already threw me off there. So my question to you was if your number one is a Star Wars movie. I'm not even kidding.
It's not. No.
Oh
No
my goodness. We're
Star
shocking
Wars
each
movies
other.
in my top 5 for summer movies. That is.
Right.
'Cause I really try to be patriotic here. So.
Oh, patriotic.
Yeah. All right. What's your number one?
Okay.
What is
Okay.
it? Tell me.
It's Jurassic Park.
Really?
It's
You
Jurassic
don't know
Park.
what mine is? Jurassic Park.
No way.
Yeah.
No
My number one
way.
is Jurassic
That's
Park.
insane.
That's great.
Like, we
That's so
know each
funny.
other, yet we don't.
We do. Tell me why you have it as your number one.
Okay. So, Jurassic Park theme park that goes horribly wrong. First half is just awesome and totally fun.
Yes.
Second half is just like intense and scary. And I associate summertime with theme parks. So I kind of feel like that whole first half of Jurassic Park makes me think of summer. Plus, they're in a tropical location.
Mhm.
It's just nothing but like fun and anticipation. So I feel like that kind of relates to summer.
Yeah.
And then I thought the second half is like incredible action, intensity, which is what like a summer blockbuster should be, a popcorn movie should be.
Agreed.
So I feel like it checks all the boxes, and that's why I had to pick it.
I agree. For exactly everything that you mentioned, I 100% agree with it. I think not to continue on with the Spielberg train, but just kind of that line of thinking for me is always very similar. And yeah, it just, to me, it feels like a perfect summer blockbuster. Like if you were to go back in time and to say, what movie would you want to show me, on July 4th or, at least like, right in the center of summer, I would always say Jurassic Park. After watching the movie, after considering all the other ones that I have on here, I'm always a fan of action movies. I think this one is perfect because it was so different as well. Like it's just so different. The technology is able to hold up. I think that is, to me, the most impressive thing is that not only is it great storytelling, great acting, a 90s, type of action movie, which I think are the best, but also the CGI, also the graphics, the VFX, everything holds up still to this day. So like to have those combinations together mixed in with the cast that you have, I think is perfect. So that's also why I went with it too. I think it's a solid movie all the way around, and it's filled with such great intensity. Like I imagine myself being in a movie theater. It's hot outside. You finally get inside and you're like, okay, cool. Like I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to enjoy myself a movie. I have nothing else to think about. I'm going to let my mind just kind of go off into the distance and do whatever. Jurassic Park is like the perfect scenario. Perfect
Right.
storyline, I guess, for that.
Right. Nope. Agree. 100%.
Without a doubt. So, well, our lists were a lot more similar. So what, we both had Jurassic Park.
Yes.
You had Independence Day, or did you not have Independence Day?
I did not have
You did not.
Independence Day.
Did you have
I did not.
Goonies?
No.
No. You had Raiders of the Lost Ark and Sandlot. That's right. So we had
Yes.
3 of the same 5 movies. Should we give some honorable mentions, because I had Jaws on my list. I figured you were going to mention it, but Jaws without a doubt would
It's
be
true.
like 6, 7, somewhere around there. I like Jaws a lot. It's not my favorite movie. That's the only reason why I don't have it in my top 5. But of course, in terms of like, you know, what it means to summer movies in history, it absolutely deserves the number 1, number 2 spot somewhere right there. I also put up E.T., of course, like that, you know.
Oh, good choice. Good choice.
Is a wonderful, wonderful choice. Keeping on with the Steven Spielbergs. I also put up here, and these are just kind of more personal favorites. I also remembered The Great Outdoors. That's a summer movie, which I really like as like a comedy.
I was going to mention that too. Yes. Great pick.
Yes.
Great. And very underrated and overlooked. If you haven't seen Great Outdoors, you need to check that out.
You do. Very, very good movie. Again, another 90s, great comedy, very, very funny. And then I personally saw this movie for the first time during the summer, and I actually saw it at a drive-in movie theater for the first time I'd ever been to one. And that was Avengers 1. I had to put something in there. To me, this is like a perfect kind of like summer blockbuster, you know, to where you have all the characters together for the first time. Really, really good storytelling. Obviously, we love, you know, Marvel and Star Wars movies. So I had to put one Marvel movie and I had to put one Star Wars movie. And because of recency bias, because of how much that I like this movie, which is going to be very debated or controversial, but I'm a huge fan of Force Awakens. And to me, that is outside of the classics, stuff like that's too obvious. I went with Force Awakens because that is my favorite recent Star Wars movie. So yeah, those are my honorable mentions. Do you have anything else on your list for now off the top of your head you're thinking about it?
I'm thinking through. Great Outdoors came to mind just like as an underrated kind of summer movie. I like your choice of the original Avengers because it's like action movie, not like super deep into the MCU yet, where it can get like confusing. You can just really just sit back and enjoy that movie. So yeah, I like that. I was trying to think of some other ones here.
One that I thought about, which I was kind of surprised that I kept seeing this on a bunch of lists, was Ferris Bueller. Now, I love Ferris Bueller, but it's during
school. Not a summer movie.
Yeah, it's like that kind of like instantly in my head. I was like, oh, I got to put that on my list. And I'm like, wait a second. That's not a summer movie. Like it looks like it, but it's not.
That's one that I would like to watch. Like as the school year's coming to a close, like when you get kind of like in April or May and you're kind of like burnout and you need like some hope, you know,
that's a good way.
You need to watch that though during the school year. Yes.
Agreed.
I would not count that as a summer movie personally. There is one movie that I remember growing up with, and it's on Disney Plus. I think I recommended it to you. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not. But it's a 90s movie. It's called Heavyweights with Ben Stiller.
Yes.
And it's about kids at summer camp and some craziness that goes on, but that is a great summer movie too. I'd recommend that one. I'm trying to look here at IMDb's list. Can you guess what IMDb has as number 1?
I'm gonna assume it's Jaws.
You are absolutely correct.
Nice. I was gonna say Jaws or Sandlot. That whenever I looked at different lists because I had to get to inspiration, those few were always up there. Also, another one that I just thought about, Karate Kid. That's not a bad one.
That is a great pick. I like that.
I really didn't think about that one. It wouldn't have been in my top 5, but without a doubt, an honorable mention.
I agree. Yeah, I love Karate Kid. I love all the Karate Kid movies actually, but it wouldn't make my top 5, but definitely is a summer movie for sure.
Yeah. Well, with that, like I said, summer, it's here. It's upon us. Definitely some good movies to take a look at. Like I said, maybe you've heard some movies on this list that you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that movie in a while. Make sure to put it on. Let us know. Maybe what we could do next, because I know we talked about this a lot, and this kind of perfectly segues us into our next subject. Would be to do like a watch together of one of those top movies. Maybe like a perfect summer movie. Maybe we look at Jurassic Park because it was both on our number 1 list. Goonies, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Sandlot, whatever you really want to throw up there. Jaws, even like there's a lot of great movies that we can watch. So maybe it could be like, oh, I just thought of this, a watch together summer series where we look at the top 5 best summer movies. Just had an idea.
I love it.
All right,
I love it. Genius. You're on a roll.
I gotta write this down. Summer series watch together. Okay, it's been copied down. And the last thing
Nice.
that I wanted us to do before we round it out, which again, this episode is the longest one we've had so far. So with that, I want us to quickly touch on the movie that we did just do a watch together on, which was Luca, which was great. If you haven't got the chance to do so, feel free to take a look at it. Again, the video that we have posted currently on our YouTube is not only the first podcast episode, but it's also a full movie commentary / reaction / watch together, whatever you really want to label it. We did it. So if you are interested, you can feel free to hear our first reaction into watching the movie. We gave some good perspective. We talked about kind of, different storylines throughout the movie, how we thought about it, where it kind of ranks. And there was this big talking point coming into the movie about how a lot of people thought it was either great or they hated it. It was kind of like either you liked it or you really did not. We were, as I probably expected, kind of in the middle of that conversation. It wasn't our favorite movie, but we also didn't dislike it either. There was definitely some wonderful aspects to it, but we had a really good time doing the watch together. So if you get the chance to do so, feel free to check out that episode, or rather to check out that watch together. All you have to do is just time up Disney Plus or however you're watching it. But if you are watching this more recently, I'm sure you're watching on Disney Plus. You just time it up with us, you press play, and there you go. Very, very easy. But with that, Savannah, give me your quick reaction. What'd you think of Luca? How do you kind of see that movie ranking among a few of the other Pixar ones before we close things out?
I like Luca. My opinion hasn't really changed from
Yeah.
we did our watch along, our first impression. I feel the same way about it. Haven't thought about it past couple of days. I think it's a great summer movie. Adults are gonna like it. Kids are gonna like it. Again, not gonna make like the Hall of Fame of Pixar movies.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do feel like it's a fun, easy watch. You're not gonna like bawl your eyes out or feel emotionally distraught after watching it like a lot of Pixar movies.
Right.
I feel like, so that's why I kind of liked it in that respect. I could just like turn it on and have fun. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it, but don't go into it expecting a masterpiece.
Yeah, that's exactly the way that I feel about it too. And I have thought about our ratings that we did. You did a 7.5, I think.
Yes.
And I did a 7.6. So we'll keep that in mind for the future as we watch other Pixar movies, things like that. And honestly, we haven't done rankings for other movies, so I don't really know like where that one stands. It could be
But
lower,
we
it could be
will.
higher. Yes, we will do those as time goes on. But I agree. It was a movie that I was, excited for. But like I said, I think that's a perfect description. Go into it excited, knowing that it's going to be a great Pixar movie. But like you said, not that it's going to be in the Hall of Fame, not that it's going to be, a masterpiece. It's not a Toy Story. It's not a Lion King. It's not, whatever you want to insert there as one of the greatest, Disney Pixar movies of all time. Very, very good. But again, I just feel like at times it did lack a little bit. I won't give any, unnecessary spoilers. To me, just kind of the ending was the big talking point that I had, where I really liked it. I thought that it was going in a really good direction. A few things were a little, I don't know, kind of different to me, but I think kids are going to really like this movie a lot. As you said, I think it's going to be it's a movie where everybody can enjoy it. It's also a good laugh. It's not kid humor to the point where, a grown-up can't enjoy the movie. It's like almost like eye gouging a little bit to like, you can tell what the audience is really being engaged at. But it was really good. Like I said, I thought it's a really fun movie. Like I said, it's a movie for everybody to watch. And I kind of put it in the middle. We'll see as time goes on. Like maybe that changes a little bit. Like one movie that I loved when I first saw it was Coco. Like I thought it was really good. And then I watched it the second time and I'm like, this is even better than I thought it was. So, you have those movies sometimes where you revisit it and you're like, wow, that was way better. Or wow, this was, maybe this kind of fell a little bit now that I've watched it the second time. So that has the ability to be the case with this movie. But like I said, I think we were both fans. And again, feel free to check out our watch together. Feel free to let us know your thoughts on that. What movie you want to see us do next? Because I think without a doubt, we are going to be doing more of those. And like I said, maybe that summer watch series could be something that we do very, very soon. So with that, I think we've covered everything that we came into it wanting to cover. Savannah, any final thoughts?
I feel better about Loki after having talked about it over with you.
Agreed.
I was already excited for next Wednesday, but now I need it to be here like tomorrow. So it's going to be a long week until the next episode. But yeah, some crazy news this week. We'll see if things are a bit more normal in the entertainment news coming up this coming week, or it may get weirder. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Again, I'm sorry for kind of threatening your childhood with this week's rundown.
It's all right.
And I really enjoyed our summer picks.
I did too.
It was interesting how similar they were. I knew one or two would be similar. I didn't think we would be that similar, but it was pretty cool that we were.
It was.
And
I agree.
Yeah. So this has been fun as always. So
Absolutely. Like I said, we really enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you guys did as well. Again, I know I always mention this, but if you have not done so already, make sure to check us out on a various amount of social platforms. You can check us out, obviously here on YouTube. You can check us out on Twitter, on Instagram at Real Convo. Again, we're posting content, posting updates, videos, little snippets here and there, letting you know maybe when certain things are coming. Maybe eventually in the future we'll do a literal watch together where we watch movies live. I think that would be something fun to do in the future. But if you have any
that'd
ideas,
be a blast.
it would be. If you have any ideas whatsoever, do not hesitate to let us know those. We are super interested in trying to adapt and trying to add in ideas that other people would like to see. While we have a lot of ideas, we know there are tons of people who have way more ideas and creative ideas than we do. So with that, it was a great episode. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in. We will be back again next Wednesday talking about Loki, talking about some of the biggest headlines, and hopefully my childhood will not be disappearing from me in front of my eyes. So with that, we hope that you guys did enjoy this episode, and we will see you next Wednesday for episode 3 of Real Conversation.